Hi friends, it's Becky, and I have a tutorial to share with you today. I'm going to be making two sets of jewelry. One set is going to be using items from the Bargain Bead box for Tranquil Tides, and Bargain Bead box is a monthly bead subscription. This month's, well, June's subscription was themed Tranquil Tides, so we have lots of blues, coppers, and some of these kind of warm corally colors. I actually pulled out this fossil coral coin bead that I've had in my stash. I got it from Soft Flags. There was a whole set of coin beads because some of these colors are so similar to some of these others that came in the box. I thought it would be a great addition to this to be able to create a necklace using that. So that did not come in the bead subscription, but everything else that I'm using in this did. I'm going to be using some of this Lumishina chain for a little tassel that hangs from this. We're going to add some of these crystals, then that really light blue color. We've got some other crystals in this matte AB peachy color that we're going to be using. These spiral spacer beads. These, they're not really heishis, are they? I mean, they're kind of, but they're just these little abbreviated cylinders of sodalite. So I'm going to be using all of that in one of my creations and sets. And then I've got these little starfish that would be absolutely perfect for some earrings, so we're going to be using those. And then I also got a companion bundle, and it's sold by Beadbox Bargains. That is the sister store for Bargain Bead Box, where you can get like closeout things. They usually put together a bundle of beads, findings, etc. that go with or accompany your Bargain Bead Box. So I'm going to be making a set with those. I'm going to be using some of these nuggets. We've got some of the goldstone nuggets and some sodalite nuggets as well. These ones are chunkier. I really like how stacking these nuggets up gives you like a really nice, like organic-y kind of a look. So I'm going to be making some links with those and adding these rope-shaped links that were in that box, and this sodalite pendant for the necklace. And then for earrings, I'm going to grab these ceramic sea turtles that were in that box, and we'll be using those. I am using some ear wires that were in the Bargain Bead box for both of these, and I'm using these rope accent toggle clasps for both of these. These were in the companion bundle. Now the companion bundles are limited in quantity, so it is not available anymore. However, some of the items that were in there may still be available for sale at Bargain Bead Box. I'm going to list my unboxing for the companion bundle, as well as my unboxing for the Bargain Bead Box, and links to both the Bargain Bead Box site where you can subscribe and the Beadbox Bargain site where you might be able to find some of these available for purchase. They also put up extras of the box if you didn't get one and you'd like to get one. I have a coupon code that you can use in order to get a few dollars off of your first month subscription or your first order at Beadbox Bargains. I will also put that in the description below. And you may have seen on my channel another tutorial today by my sister. She also got the Bargain Bead Box and Beadbox Bargains, and she has done a Jenny's version of this type of video where we're making two different necklaces using both the Bargain Bead Box and the companion bundle in one video. Alright, so without further ado, let's get around to the tools. I'm going to be stringing this one right here, and I'm going to be doing a beaded chain for this one. So I've got some tools for working with wire and for doing some bead stringing. I'm going to be using my crimper for the bead stringing project, as well as the chain nose pliers for that one, and some flush cutters for all of them. And then for the beaded chain necklace, I'll be using the chain nose pliers, flush cutters and some round nose pliers for doing a little bit of wire working. And you know what? I just realized I'm going to do a little bit of wire working on this one as well for the focal, so that will also get used for that project. Those are the 4 tools that I'm going to be using. The wire that I'm using for both my links here and for my focal is this 22 gauge wire. I'm going to use this on the earrings that I make as well. So we'll get to see some fun with that. I also have some of these head pins. This came in the box. They sent us some additional findings, you know, like that, the ear wires and the head pins, which is really nice to have sometimes. Using them for the earrings on this project, and I'm also using them to create some dangles with these little crystals for this project. Alright, so I'm going to move my links and things over so that we can get started with my strung design, and then we'll get to our link design. Let me just move these out of the way so that we can not have the camera be all confused by too many things being on here. I've got a little bead stopper. I like to use those when I'm doing my bead stringing. But speaking of stringing, I'm also going to be stringing on some wire. This is just copper colored wire. It's going to blend in really nicely with these antique copper color findings and the wire that I'm using. So I'm just moving these guys, it's for the second project, out of the way. Oh, and there's going to be some jump rings in that one because that's how I'm going to be connecting all of my links together, is with some jump rings. Those are 4mm jump rings. Alright, so for this one, once again, for this, I've got my fossil coral focal bead. Absolutely love fossil coral because you can see like just all of this. It's sediment that was compacted and fell into a seabed from where all of this coral used to live, and it's just one of my favorite little gemstone things, the fossil coral. It's like an echo of something that was around like millennia ago. Alright, I'm just kind of moving these guys out of the way because we're going to make our little focal here with these crystals as some dangles. For this chain, I've cut several different lengths. I've got 2 each that are 6 links long. I've got 2 that are 5 links long, and 2 that are 6 links long. So let's get these spread out a little bit like that. And I'm going to show you how I made these little dangles. I made 5 of them already, so we'll make the 6th one together. I'm just going to put this on a head pin, like this, and then take my chain nose pliers and make a little bend right at the top of the bead. This can be a little bit difficult when you've got a tiny bead and fairly sturdy wire because it takes some effort to bend it over the top. But you want to have a good grip on your bead, and you want to go gently and smoothly because sometimes you can if you're a little rough with bending it that way, it might crack your bead. And then usually for a simple loop, I'm going to measure from where I'm holding the bead right here to where the wire hits the bottom of my fingernail. I know from experience that that is 1 centimeter long. But you can measure that if you've got different fingers, different thicknesses on your fingers and things like that. So I'm going to take my flush cutters, cut off my excess, and then use my round nose pliers to roll this end up and turn it into a loop. I've got about 1/3 of the way from the pointy end on my round nose pliers. And again, I've got a good grip on this while I'm rolling this back. And it's a little tippy to the side, so let's just fix that. It's also not closed all the way, so alright, there we go. Alright, so now I'm going to attach these dangles to each of these chains. And you can do that by swinging open the loop, connecting it to the chain, one end. And then swinging it closed. And again, I'm going to do that to each of these lengths of chain that I've already cut. And the reason I've got them at different lengths is because they're all going to be gathered up together at the base of this. And with different lengths, those crystals won't be all clustered together. They'll kind of hang at different levels on this tassel. This vocal is about the most intensive part of this that we're doing. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the ones that are 5. Okay. Those are 4. Okay. Alright, and now after this, the rest of the loops that I'm going to be making are going to be wrapped loops instead of simple loops. So let's get some wire out here, and I am going to actually be pulling off about 10 inches of wire, maybe 8 or 9 inches actually. Yeah, let's go for that, 8 or 9 inches of wire. And I was just straightening it out with my fingers. It makes it easier to work with if I straighten it out with my fingers because it warms it up a little bit as well. Alright. I'm going to make a wrapped loop on the end of this wire and attach my chain to it before I do the wrapping. To do that, about 2 inches down from the end, I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and make myself a little bend. It doesn't have to be a 90-degree angle. It can be a little bit shallower of an angle than that. That is totally fine. Then I'm going to take my round nose pliers and about 1/3 of the way down from that end, or 1/4 of the way, something like that. I'm going to go ahead and grip the wire and then push the wire over the top jaw of my pliers, open it up, swing that bottom jaw up around to the top to get it out of the way, and then just keep going around until it crosses over. Once it's crossed over, we can do our wrapping, but before we do that, I'm going to start attaching my chain. I just opened that up a little bit so that it's not right next to that wire. You can see that space there. That's going to help me put this on a little bit easier. And I'm going to start with one of the short ends, one of my four segment long pieces of chain, and one of my 5 segment long ones. Alright, and then the 6 segment long ones. I'm just going to put them on in order from shortest to longest, then my second, and then we'll go down in descending order. So longest, middle, and shortest. And that gives it a little bit of symmetry as it's dangling down from there. Alright, now I'm going to close this up. You can do that with your fingers or with some pliers. But I'm going to hold the loop and I can either use my fingers or another set of pliers to wrap that wire around around that neck there. need a lot of wraps for this. I'm just going to do about 3 of them. There we go. Like that. Now 22 gauge wire can sometimes be a little soft, which means it's easy to bend, but it also means it's easy to overbend. So when you're working with it, just go slow and take your time. Alright, so that makes it a very fun little jangly chain tassel. Tassel-tastic. And now that I've got that hanging down at the bottom of this, I can put my large focal bead right here on this piece of wire. Just like that. Now I could probably have used a bead cap right there. Let me just, I'm going to try this with the bead caps that came in the companion bundle because they're a little bit deeper than the other ones. I actually didn't get some of the other ones, but this might actually be a fun place to use them. Like they're kind of coney, like that cone shape. Actually, just add that there for a little extra fun detail. And I'm going to point the open end of that cone down towards the tassel. Like that. Yeah, I like that. That adds a little extra finishing to that. Alright, and then we put this guy on here. And now I need to make a loop up here at the top so that I can string this on my necklace. So I'm just going to grasp my entire focal here with my chain nose pliers and bend that wire back away from me. And this, I wanted this long bit. It's totally fine that this is long because I'm going to be making a spiral with my wire in order to make it kind of match my spacers with that spiral. So I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But first I want to do a little loop here, about the same place on there. I'm going to just push that wire around. Keep it going around this way. And then just wrap down towards the stone. There. Alright. Now we could do more messy wraps and have a whole big thick piece here, but I'm going to roll this up into a spiral and have it just kind of sitting right here at the top of this my fossil coral bit. So let me decide which one I want to be the front and which is going to be the back. And I think I want this one to be the front, actually. Alright, so I'm just taking this bit because it's got a little bit of kink in it. And I'm just going to straighten it out a little bit more so that when it rolls up, it's a pretty smooth spiral. And I'm just going to scooch in a little bit here so that we can get some more detail with the spiral rolling. And this is one of those things that, you know, once you have done it a couple of times, you're going to be like, oh, this is really fun. And you're going to just want to do it over and over and over again. But I'm going to take the very tip of my round nose pliers and the very tip of this wire, and I'm going to make a fairly tight curve. But I'm going to stop right here, and you see right there where I had gripped it originally, it doesn't quite curve, so I'm just going to snip that end so that it's curved, and then keep rolling this around. So that way it just makes for a better spiral. Something that I have picked up from watching some other folks do it. Something that I had never thought of. Alright, and this part is the part that you want to take your time with, because you want to take your pliers. You can use flat nose pliers or these chain nose pliers, but you're going to want to grip your spiral and move your wire around it. You can either move the hand that is holding the wire, or you can move the hand that's holding the pliers, or both, but just small movements will get that spiral built. I'm just going to keep spiraling in, not in despair, just spiraling along until I get to my focal. But yeah, practice doing spirals because it's really fun, I think. And you get a really cool effect. And it is such a great way to add a little extra whimsy or finish to what you are creating. I'm getting closer. Okay. Maybe just a little bit more there. And then bring that around to the front. Oop, I want that to be to the side. Alright. I'm just using my finger to place this where I want it to be and giving a little smush right here with my pliers to help that stay exactly where I want it. So there is my fossil coral focal. There we go. And now let's get to stringing. You see how that's gonna bring those spirals in a little bit more into what I'm making. Okay, I'm setting that out of the way, and let's start planning this. I'm going to need to snip this open for these guys. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6. We're going to be filling in some of that space between these spacers with beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I've got some extras for later. Alright, let's do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. This is going to be the center where my focal is hanging from. I think we're going to want it to be like that. Alright. I'm just laying out my beads to make sure I've got enough and in the order that I want it to be in. I like that. I like that a lot. Six, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm about to run out of space that way, so I'm just going to curve us back around this way. Alright. Alright, so I'm going to start at this end and just start stringing along. When I get to this, I'll put the focal in the middle, and then we'll keep stringing up to the other side. So hopefully I am not missing any bits, but I'm going to go ahead and work from the spool and wait to cut my wire until I've got it strung. So I wouldn't have to worry about any beads falling off the end of my wire on the way in here. These are some really fun spacers though. But yeah, when I was looking through like some of my beads and that, I remembered about my fossil coral, and the strand that I got, it had 3, or was it 4? No, there were 5 actually of the coin beads. They also had ovals that were available as well. But the others were kind of more pink leaning. And this one was the only one that had these same like kind of peachy tones to it. So I was like, you know what, let's use this with my bargain bead box design, because it's great to be able to find something that you maybe bought a while ago and weren't sure what to use it with, and then suddenly you've got the perfect thing that you can add to it. It's always so nice to have that. Yeah, yeah, I like it. I was just putting these strung next to it to see how I liked with the colors all together. And yes, I do. I do like it. Alright, I'm just going to check and make sure that I don't need another repeat of this beading pattern on this. Let me get to the center bit. Because if I do, I'll just do another little repeat of the pattern before I get to this middle part. But I just want to check that length real quick, see where I'm at, and I need another pattern repeat, so it's a good thing I've still got more of all of these beads so that I can do that. And whatever I add on this side, I'm also going to want to add on this side, so I'm doing this side first. Alright, now I've got to build out this side. Okay, one more. Alright, I think that's going to be good where it's at. So let's go ahead and go through my focal. There we go. Now I can start stringing along here until we get to the other side, and then we can start adding a clasp and work on our earrings for this design. Sort of loving this a lot. Bead stringing is pretty fun. I'm afraid I've just been enjoying the process of doing this. Haven't been taking too much time to fill in the empty spaces of chatter, but that's okay, because you know what? Sometimes you just want to bead. Sometimes you just want to one bead at a time, get yourself all strung up and everything put in order. But yeah, best beading advice I ever heard for working with wire is to go slow and be gentle. You don't have to like death grip your pliers or anything like that. Just, you know, take your time. All right, let's compare. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Y'all know sometimes I be like that. I love this. It's almost like jellyfish. That's what I'm getting with this tassels. It's a little bit of a jellyfish vibe, which is not bad at all. All right, let me double check this length, because I can always add more beads before I cut my wire. It's really hard to add beads after you've cut it. Just super difficult. Alright, And I think actually along the back of here, I'm going to forego the spacers. I'm going to keep those for something else. And I'm just going to add another couple of these, just a few extra beads just for increasing the length just along the back where, you know, you might have your hair covering it or something like that if you don't have it up. Keep those spacers for the front, and I'm going to need to remember to do that on the other side too. So I am going to crimp this end, and I'm just going to make a little loop there with it. I've got some 2x2 crimp tubes. So we're going to put the end of our wire through the crimp and then bend it back on itself. And then to use the magical crimper, actually I don't think I want that one. Let me find a different one. That one will work. Alright, so to use the magical crimper you're going to want to, and by the way, I very rarely will use wire guardians with the soft flex wire. It doesn't tend to need it as much as other wires do. It doesn't kink as easily. And so you're going to want to get the little divot right there in your pliers and center your crimp tube. Give it a little smush. You don't have to smush the crap out of it, just a little smush, just so it gets those corners smushed down. And then rotating it at about a 90-degree angle. And give it another smush. And just keep going around until all the corners and edges have been rounded out. Oop. Or, ooh, no, I think I grabbed the wrong crimps. These are some of the bad crimps. Okay, do not use bad crimps. Use good, solid crimps. Those ones were not some of the good ones. Where are my copper ones? Alright, so I have misplaced my copper ones, but that's okay, because these ones are just fine. These are soft flex crimps. They're ones that always work for me and don't fall apart on me like these bad ones. Where did those ones come from? I must have had them out for some reason to do something else with. Alright, yeah, no, those are bad crimps. Don't use the bad crimps. The soft flex crimps are good crimps. I've also heard from folks who like bead-along crimps a lot. So those are good kinds. There we go. So ravioli time. And this time, my crimp's not going to fall apart on me. And I can just do a little smush all the way around and end up with a nice smooth ball of crimp. And I like this because I don't have to put a crimp cover on this. It looks like a little bead right there on the end. Like that. And here on the other side, I need to make sure I have enough wire for crimping. You want to be able to bend it back on itself without it being awkward and weird. Because although I may be awkward and weird, I don't like it when my jewelry making is. And I also will curve my wire. It helps take up some of the slack so that when you are actually wearing it, your necklace has better drape. It's not all stiff and difficult. Also, when the necklaces or any beading is crimped too tightly, like with the beads too much tight, it puts pressure on the crimps. And I'm might take a while, but eventually it will be a little too much. I'm just adjusting this loop here down. I also like to make sure that there's some space between my crimp and the bead next to it before I do my next crimp with my magical crimper. You can use a different crimping style. This just happens to be my favorite. But if you do like a taco crimp or a flat crimp, you're probably going to want a crimp cover. Because that usually ends up with a little bit of a rough edge. Right. I love it. And I'm going to grab a couple of jump rings over here from my pile, and we're going to attach the clasp to this. Again, I pulled this clasp out of my companion bundle. I think there were also some magnetic clasps, but I tend to like magnetic clasps more for bracelets rather than necklaces, because sometimes I've had it happen. Magnetic clasps on my necklaces have come undone while I was wearing them. It's just a little more pressure to put on there. And then, but magnetic clasp on bracelets make it easier to take your bracelets on and off without having to worry about getting a toggle through the loop, or opening and closing a clasp, or trying to get your finger just the right place for a box clasp. So I do like magnetic clasps for bracelets, and I do have enough of a lot of these beads to be able to make maybe a matching bracelet at some point. Don't know if I'm going to do that today, probably not. But let's get some earrings made with this. Alright, and so for this, I am going to make myself a couple of spiral-ended head pins. So instead of using these head pins, I'm going to make some spirals. And so I'm going to start just with rolling up a spiral, so that it's going to end up looking a little bit like that. And I'm going to leave that on the spool until after the spiral is done. That way I don't have to estimate how much wire I'm pulling off in order to get myself that nice spiral. Alright, so now that that is curled up, I think I'm going to go around 3 times, maybe 4. Yeah, let's do 4. Okay, so see where the end of that, scooch it just a little bit right there. See, I'm counting it from the end of the, get something that's smaller to point with this to than my finger. The end right there, until it's about equal to that. That's where I'm going to go ahead and stop with that. And now I'm going to grab about 3 inches off of there and do a little snip. And I'm not going to bend this yet because it's going to be a little different from the way I would normally do a spiral bottomed head pin. So I'm just going to leave that like that and roll up a spiral for my next one. Now, so I'm just doing small movements when I'm rolling this. Sometimes if you do like a bigger movement with it, or if you try to speed it up, 1, 2, 3, what, is it 3 or 4 that I did with that? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, okay. That's 1, 2, 3, all right. Oop, I've got it turned around. There we go. So that's going to end up being the 4th time around for all of this. So I'm just waiting until the wire is at the same spot as that, the beginning of it in this little circle. Alright, and let's make sure this one's about the same length. Alright, now I'm just going to bend this back instead of up, so that when I put this through my starfish, I can go up this way with the rest of my earring. There's a little spot right there. Let's fill that in with some of these. Let's see, 2 of those. And then I'm just stacking these on until I feel like it looks good. Let's do 1 of these and a sparkle, and another 1 of these, and 1 more of these guys, like that. Alright, now I need to do a loop up here at the top to put an ear wire through. So I'm going to hold this to the side like that, my chain nose pliers, bend that over the top, and I'm going to do another wrapped loop right here at the top of this little earring stack. And if you wanted to, you could cut this a little longer and do another spiral up here at the top, but I kind of feel like that might be overkill. Just a little bit. I've got some excess wire here. I'm going to snip that excess wire off, tuck in the end of that wire that's sticking out, and attach this ear wire to my little starfish guy. Alright, so let's do that again, because that was something different from what we've done before on some of my channels. This is just a quick idea that I had for how to get these little starfish connected without having to do like a bail or something like that. We're just doing it like this. So I've got my little guy here, and I'm taking the wire right next to it and bending it back, just like that, so that it's kind of facing forward, and then we're bent back this way. And then we just go straight through our little ceramic starfish. Is it ceramic? I don't know. It might be actually hand-carved coral. I'm not sure. I want to make sure that my spiral is facing up, and then push the wire up that way so that it makes a little J. And then we've got this little space back here to fill. So let's pop a couple of these guys on there. 1, 2. Go. And now I can start stacking these other beads up along the back. Did I do that right? I did, didn't I? Another one of these. And one more of these. There you go. So it's not completely matchy-matchy to the necklace, but it goes with it. And sometimes I really like that with joy sets. Things that are maybe not matchy-matchy, but definitely go. My wrap is getting a little messy. The wire is not going where I want it to go. So I'm grabbing some pliers to adjust it. Sometimes the wire will bend on you while you're working with it. You can bend it back. Just be gentle. You don't want to bend things too much, like too far this way, too far that way, and then back and forth again, because it will weaken the wire. But a little bit of a bend back is not going to do that too badly for it. Alright, let me pen out. Put these guys next to my little jellyfish. There we go. I'm loving that. Absolutely loving it. And this is, you can see why I chose this fossil coral to go with these, because it is just such a great, like the lighter pinker tones of this go fantastically with that. Alright, I'm going to move these guys out of the way now that they are all done, and let's do some beaded chain. Now I've already made most of the links that I'm going to be using. And I'm also using some pre-made links in these. So most of this is going to be just putting things together. I am going to add a little bit extra to this because this type of bail is great for hanging on like a chain or a piece of leather cord or something else like that. But it's not going to work as well for me in this instance, so I'm just going to remove that bail off of the top of there. And now I've got myself a little loop here that I can use in my design. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these. I need to make one more for 6 of the sodalite nugget links. So we'll make that pretty soon, again using that same 22 gauge wire. And then I've got 6 of the Sunstone links or Peach Moonstone, one of those two. I can't remember which one it is. And I've got one that's almost finished. I went ahead and made that earlier. So let me show you with this one. It's basically the same link, it's just with 2 different types of gemstones. So I'll just show you with one what I am doing. I'll also get these guys out here. Okay. Or, what if I did this? Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to make another little link here for that, for this part. Alright, so I usually like to put on the beads that I'm going to be making the link with before I start doing my loops if I'm working off the spool. So they just kind of slide down there, and just like the other, about 2 inches down from the end, go ahead and make myself a little bend in the wire, and then using my round nose pliers, I'm going to push it up and over the top of my round nose pliers, open up the round nose pliers and swing it around so that jaw gets out of the way. And then once I've got a little curly Q, hold on to my loop, and then either using my fingers or another set of pliers, I'm going to wrap that wire around the neck and snip off my excess. And this is why I like to work from the spool instead of trying to estimate how long a piece of wire I need to cut off for this. I'll push my beads right up there, measure 3 fingers down, and cut the wire. Make sure when you do that you're cutting the wire and not your fingers. I haven't done that yet. That's always in the back of my mind though, because safety. Alright, now to make my second loop, I'm going to hold onto the wire with my chain nose pliers, push that over the top. That gives me some space between where the loop is going to be and these beads in order to be able to wrap that around that there. So I'm going to make my loop here, and if you're not using jump rings to connect your beaded chains, at this point before you wrap the second one, that's where you'd want to connect it to the next link, or to the next link, or to the next thing that you're attaching it to. But since I'm using jump rings to attach it to everything, I'm just going to go ahead and close that loop right now. And that is one of the reasons why I sometimes like to use jump rings to connect my wrapped loop links, because it just makes it a little easier. I don't have to remember to leave that loop undone, because that is something that I forget all the time. I'll just get into a groove, and I'll just, before I know it, I'll have a link that isn't attached to anything. I'll need to either start again or change how I'm doing things. Alright, so for this, we're going to have these guys with these links in between. Two, three, Alright, and this is going to use up all of these links for that, so I'm not going to have extras for this bit, and that's okay because I'm just going to add a little link here that these two are going to be attached to, and I'm going to attach it to this. Let me make my wrapped loop on the end of this. This link got left undone. I'm not sure why I did that, but again, it's just to show that it's basically the same type of link, it just has a different gemstone. They're still gemstone nuggets, and they're still stacked 3 deep on all of those. So we have those. Alright, let's get this one done. For this one, I'm going to make a little bit larger of a loop, so about 2/3 of the way down with my round nose pliers. I'm going to do the same thing. It's just a little further down, so I've got a larger loop for these two to be attached to. And I'm just going to give that loop a smush with my round nose pliers to help work harden it. That way it won't turn into an oval while it's being worn. And I'm going to want about 4 fingers because I did not put my beads on before I started this. Alright, so I'm going to grab the smallest to the largest on this. That's kind of how I stacked most of these, smallest to largest, when I was doing them. So let's go. One more. Alright. So now I've got my little stack there. My, see, it's a larger loop than those others, you can see. But let's go ahead and get a loop that we can attach to the focal. Bend that back that way. I want this loop to be perpendicular instead of parallel. These ones are parallel, so they're both facing the same way. This one's going to be facing the opposite direction, so they are perpendicular. And before I wrap this end of my wire, I am going to attach my pendant. Right. So let's go. Got my excess wire going. Alright, so now I've got my focal done. I'm going to create 2 lengths of chain. I'm just going to put them together like this. I'm going to hold, actually, round nose pliers can help with that, but they aren't as effective to swing open jump rings as just another set of pliers, something that's got a flat side to it, because you want to hold one end and then twist it open like that to get your jump ring open. Once you've got your jump ring open, then you can connect your links together. And these links don't have a front and back, so I can connect them any which way I want to. And it works. So I'm going to connect all of these together and then all of these, and I'll get back to you once I've got both of those lengths connected. And then we'll connect it to our focal and add our closures. Alright, so I have both ends of my necklace chain created. We've got everybody all connected. Now I'm going to connect both of these ends to my focal using a couple of jump rings. So let's do this end. Just going to take that loop and put it through that big loop that I did in that link. Make sure that's closed. And then the next one. Put that through that same big loop. But just that same big loop, not through the other jump ring. Alright. I really like how these larger sodalite stacks just give it that kind of chunky vibe right there. It kind of gives it a little bit of balance with the rest of the chain versus the big focal there. So you got the big chunks of sodalite stacked up there. Let's put some closures on here. I'm just going to use these jump rings and attach the toggle clasp. The ring on one end. And then the toggle on the other. Alright. And there we have this necklace, and this one was again using beads and findings from the companion bundle for the Tranquil Tides bargain bead box. Let's move that aside real quick and let's make ourselves some simple turtle earrings. I'm using some of these sunstone beads on here, and I'm going to grab those head pins that came in the bargain bead box. Let me just straighten this one out. It's a little bent. You can use nylon jaw pliers as well to straighten out some of these head pins. This is like stainless steel or something. It is a very sturdy head pin. Alright, so for these guys, I'm just going to keep it simple. We're just going to stack these beads on. I want a small nugget to kind of be the cushion between the bottom of this head pin and the this porcelain bead right there like that. It doesn't need to be a big one. And that's because these porcelain beads have a very large hole, so that head pin will go right through it. So you need a smaller bead to stop it from doing that. Right, and then another one of these nuggets right here on the top. And then I'm just going to bend this over like that. And snip off the excess past 1 centimeter. There's not enough of this wire for me to hold on to. Like I'll often grip the wire when I go to snip it. So here's a little trick. If you have a little bit of wire here, and you know it could go flying when you snip it, I'm going to turn instead and kind of press that into my bead mat so it ends up there instead of flying off somewhere else. So if you don't have a lot of wire left to hold on to, just turn it into your bead mat and it'll land there instead of going off in other directions. Alright, now we're going to roll this guy up. I'm just going to do a simple loop at the top of this head pin. There we go. Just like that. Let's do the same thing with our other guy. Our small nugget, our turtle. I love little turtles. Sea turtles are the best. They're so much fun. There we go. And then a large nugget up there. I'm holding on to the bottom of the head pin and all of these beads when I bend this over the top. It likes to rotate on me. Again, it's a little too much to hold on to. So we just turn it down into the mat. Actually, that's coming right off. I'm going to put this one on the top there instead. Let's see if that'll go around the corner. No, it does not. I'm going to straighten that out just a little bit. Slide that on. I was just swapping out my top beads. There we go. It's a good little bend. Alright, so now I've got my turtles and we can attach some ear wires. And that purple or that blue is just such a great match for the sodalite, I think. It just goes really well with it. Even though the sodalite is gemstone and this is porcelain, it's still just such a great match for that. So let's open this, add it to it, and then in just a sec I will pull out both of these side by side so you can get a better look at both of the jewelry sets that I made today with y'all. Alright, and if you missed my sister's tutorial using the same kind of beads, actually maybe probably different pendants, different techniques, she did post that earlier today, so if you missed it, I'll put a link in the description so you can go and watch that and get caught up on it. She and I are different people, so we have different takes on some of the same things, which I think just is really fun, you know? There is no reason why we have to be exactly the same as each other. And there we go, that's the bargain bead box that I used with this fossil coral, fossil coral from my stash, but then everything else came from that bead box. And then here is the beaded chain necklace that I made with things from the companion bundle. My little turtle earrings. Alright, once more I will have links in the description to Bargain Bead Box, to Beadbox Bargains, a coupon code you can use for a little bit of money off either your first purchase from Bargain Bead Box or your first month subscription at Bargain Bead Box, one or the other, and a link to my sister's tutorial and links to our unboxings. Until next time, my friends, happy beading.